In this video, I have a review of Westworld after this. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and today I'm going a little bit far afield from the usual type of things that I've reviewed. We're not talking about anything that has to do with space travel or very far into the future, honestly, but something that's just far enough ahead of us to not be possible quite yet, but something that might make us think about where our future is headed. Westworld is an interesting example of what we are as human beings and what we consider sentient and conscious. With Westworld having been a 1973 motion picture, which was the first major picture directed by Michael Crichton. And Crichton himself had said that it was not his desire to do this film as his first major film, but you take what you can get. And he did a reasonably good job of it. It certainly took Yul Brynner from his typecasting as the king of Siam to now you think about Yul Brynner, you think about the outlaw in Westworld. So he was kind of the central character, although James Brolin and Richard Benjamin were in there. Richard Benjamin in an unusually dramatic part. They go to this resort, which is full of robots, and you can do what you want and have no consequences. The idea is that you can fight a gunfighter and always win, and you can go to the saloon and you can interact with anybody that you want and know that you're perfectly safe because the guns only work on the robots. They don't work on people. There's nothing that you can do that will hurt anybody, and nothing that anybody will do that will hurt you. So, what a vacation. And that was kind of their slogan. And so what happens in the movie, of course, is that something goes wrong with the programming of the robots. And Yul Brynner in Westworld suddenly becomes a gunfighter that's out for real blood. And he starts shooting the place up. And they find out in the behind-the-scenes things at Westworld that this is kind of a virus that's spreading across the entire three-park area. That's Westworld and Roman World and something else world, I forget what it is. However it is, the robots have gone crazy and they've killed everybody except our main character by the time the film is done. And the whole thing is action-adventure and, will our hero get away? And which one of them will? Which I won't give away in case you've never seen the film. It's worth seeing for what it's worth. However, it departs very much from what the TV series Westworld has been. Right now on HBO, it is a show that has a much deeper and broader idea. First of all, let's talk about who did this. This is Jonathan Nolan. Jonathan Nolan was the creator of Person of Interest. And if you were a follower of that show, it was beyond your usual crime drama. It's where the main character has created a machine, as he called it, a computer program that activates all of the cameras that you see for crossing the streets and security cameras and webcams and everything. And it sees everything and is able to put together through a complex algorithm who is either going to commit a crime or who's going to be a victim of one. And then they go out and they solve the crime. It's clever. And in the beginning, the machine is just that. It's just a machine. As it moves on, though, you start thinking maybe the machine knows a little bit more than it's letting on. Maybe it's got a conscience of its own. And this is investigated a little bit. And it makes it a very interesting show as it went for several seasons. So as we go into Westworld, the same idea is kind of taken, except a little bit more literally, where the machines look like people and they are programmed to act like people and not to be able to be distinguished from people. And it's getting to where even the machines don't seem to know the difference. We have a gunfighter. He's called in this the Man in Black. He's played by Ed Harris. And at first, you're not quite sure, really, whether he is human or one of the machines, because he does not seem to play along with the scenarios that are written for the other machines. Anthony Hopkins plays the director of the park and writer of the scenarios and co-founder of the whole idea. And they have ways of interacting with the robots in order to wipe their memory every night and then put them back in the same story, doing the same things, only changing what they're doing as the guests come and interact with them. And supposedly they have no idea, or however you would say, of what's ever happened before. But there are two of the robots, one played by Evan Rachel Wood, who's called Dolores, who is the oldest android in the entire park. And she starts to not quite forget things. She seems to have a memory that she's done this before, and the more time she goes through it, the more she seems to realize that there is something else going on. And she's curious about this and wondering what this means, what's her life about. And it makes an interesting thing. By the same token, Thandie Newton, who plays Maeva, who is the madam in the bordello that they have over the saloon, plays out her part, but she seems to remember a scenario from long ago in which she had a daughter, and she misses this daughter, and she'd like to find her. And once again, this memory doesn't go away when she's brought in at the end of every day, and memory supposedly erased. So these two characters we follow around. Also, Jeffrey Wright, who plays Bernard, he is the kind of the second in command at the park behind Anthony Hopkins. And it's his job to make sure that the androids are working properly. And then they have a whole team of people that maintain them and, clean up their bullet wounds or whatever they have and send them back out on the next day. And all that's well and good. But as it goes on through the first season, you start wondering what's going on here. There's certain things that don't quite go together. And spoiler here, they play around with time. And so you're not quite certain just when all the things that you're seeing are actually happening. When the scenarios are first played out, this could be years and years ago. We're thinking that maybe the gunfighter was somebody that was one of the guests before. We're thinking that the reason that the androids are remembering it is because they've been through so many, many years of doing the same thing that maybe there's been some kind of imprinting upon them, or perhaps they've even achieved some amount of sentience. So at the end of the first season, after a big presentation on changing the narrative, there's a lot of surprise twists. As we go into the second season, we seem to think we know what's going on. But as the second season begins, it's just as confusing. Even though we know some things are happening, we know that some of the things that we're seeing are done earlier in time. And they all look the same because they're machines. They're not going to change over the years. And so we're still kind of confused at it, but it still drives home the central point, which is just this, that how do we know what consciousness is? What do we know about what sentience is? Are we just a machine? Lots of questions. It's an interesting show to watch, and I recommend it to you if you check out the second season and enjoy it along with the rest of us. It's quite a ride and quite a well-written, well-directed, well-thought-out show. I'd like to know what you think, though. If you've seen the show and have some opinions on it, please let me know in the comments. As always, I'd ask for you to subscribe and to ring the bell in order to let us be able to inform you when new videos are coming out. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining us. Don't go far.